Well, as I mentioned in a previous news video, you have to stay tuned for the Vince McMahon news. It's nothing big or nothing serious, but first, Von Wagner and Odyssey Jones joined the long list of NXT stars that have performed on main event, as both Von Wagner and Odyssey Jones were on or will be on main event this week. I believe this is the second time that Von Wagner has been featured on on main event. But Odyssey Jones, it is a little strange considering the fact that Odyssey Jones just came back from an injury, and I feel like it has not been down in NXT that long. I do know he is the type, WWE's type. I don't know if it's still WWE's type with Vince McMahon out of control, but I think once your type, always your type. And if you see big business, there's something about the big, bulky, big guys that I guess makes people see dollar signs. And speaking of guys that look, I'm gonna go a different way because this is an odd way of this is just odd. Either way, I'm moving I'm moving away from this before I get before I go down a road that's I'm not gonna keep going down this rabbit hole. Either way, Odyssey Jones and Von Wagner are featured on NXT. Main event this week. So if you're fans of those two, then basically all I'm saying is it shows how valued Odyssey Jones is within the company that they're already giving him opportunities on main event. Speaking of people that may be getting speaking of somebody that may be getting opportunities and maybe looked at as valued by the company, Carl Fredericks has signed with WWE from New Japan. Carl Fredericks worked for New Japan up till last summer. His contract expired in August 2022 after as it says on eWrestling News, he was a regular in the New Japan dojo from 2018 to 2022, trained under Katsuri Shibata, and was a regular on New Japan Strong until his deal expired. If I remember correctly, I think I remember seeing Carl Fredericks as a part of the Forbidden Door festivities last year on AEW. I could be wrong, but I think that is the case. I could be wrong, but I do believe that is the case. And, well, it just shows how... I guess it shows that WWE feels like they may have gotten to a point with the main roster that they can start re-adding depth to NXT, because NXT did lose a lot of depth from the budget cuts over the last 2 years. And this also kind of shows to a point that even with the talk of a sale, they're not going to hesitate to sign talent that they have their eyes on, in my opinion. Because otherwise, the rumors of WWE having interest in both Hikuleo and Tama Tonga would be completely unfounded and pointless to be reporting. But that's just me. That's just my logic on it. And just to, clarify what I mentioned earlier, it's that WWE always likes talent like Von Wagner, Odyssey Jones, Lashley, Omos, the guys that look intimidating and, intimidating and tall. Khali was a former world champion and he could barely make his way down on the ring. I loved, Great Khali was great. He was a, great heel champion, but long term, there was a ceiling on how long he would stick around. And I guess that just shows WWE's success with Khali shows what WCW could have had with Giant Gonzalez if Giant Gonzalez would have been able to put it together. Now, just to cycle back for a second, if you remember last year, MLW, Major League Wrestling, filed an antitrust lawsuit that alleges WWE interfered with potential MLW deals with Vice TV and the Tubi streaming service. In the lawsuit, MLW claimed that they had a deal in place with Tubi, but WWE pressured them to drop it, or they would pull SmackDown from Fox, since Fox owns Tubi. MLW claimed that WWE SVP Susan Levinson called Vice executives to have the deal reached in May. To have the deal reached in May to air archival footage nixed because Vince McMahon was pissed about Fox airing MLW programming. In an update per PW Insider, WWE filed a motion on January 5th hoping to get a protective order that would suspend the company's obligation to produce the materials MLW has requested. Again, I will put this down in the description below, like I normally do when I heavily quote something in the news videos. In my opinion, it seems a little far-fetched because in almost 25 years of being a wrestling fan, the one thing I have never known Vince McMahon to do is to care about what other people are doing, especially other wrestling companies, because as Jim Cornette has said on more than one occasion, and not just Jim Cornette, Bruce Pritchard as well, Vince has never watched and likely never will watch other wrestling promotions. So why would he care if MLW is being aired on Vice, especially when WWE does not have a current television agreement with Vice TV to air WWE programming? Vice was airing Dark Side of the Ring, and unless you want to say that the Tales from the Territory series is the reason why Vice would have pulled, or WWE would have had Vice pull any other wrestling programming, it honestly does not make a lot of sense, because if anything, having MLW would have helped WWE with the the Tales from the Territory series, because MLW Vice TV would have had another wrestling program that would have attracted other people to, more wrestling fans to watch WWE's, Tales from the Territories. Because from what I understand, if I remember correctly, WWE and Vice worked together, as did the guys from Dark Side of the Ring. The three worked together on the series alongside The Rock. But I don't understand. Like, I'm not denying, confirming or denying the idea that this happened. I'm just saying part of it doesn't make sense that it would. I'm not saying it did or it didn't, but it's, it also kind of seems like, draw your own conclusion. I just thought it was an interesting bit of news, especially with the reports of WWE possibly looking for a sale. Ongoing litigation is something that is spoken about in sale discussions. I know this from the research that I did on the WCW sale. So, ongoing litigation is something that they would have to mention and disclose when they look for potential sale partners. So that is a possible reason why WWE seeked a motion, hoping to suspend the company's obligation to produce the materials. But again, I will post this in the description below once I post the video. The last bit of news before we wrap up for the day on a busy news day is that the morale within the backstage of WWE has said to drop. It is nowhere close to where it was but there is a number of talent that are worried about, well, the future because Vince McMahon is back, and that there were a lot of people that were happier when Vince McMahon was not here, as opposed to now that Vince McMahon is back, even if Vince is just here as a member of the board of directors and is not helping with the day-to-day operations of the company. There are still people that are worried about that Vince may get back into creative, that Vince may get back into the day-to-day operations of the company, and that they're worried about budget cuts. They're worried about things going back to how they were 2 years ago or what have you. And they're just very worried, understandably so. Morale is not where it was, but WWE needs to prove that things are not going to change even with Vince back to allow morale to get back to where it was, as morale had never been higher as of a couple months ago. But, whatever happens, happens, and if Vince stays in his lane, as far as just being here to help with the media rights deals and the potential sale of the company, or in some cases the inevitable sale of the company, then that might be something that will help boost morale. Either way, these have been my thoughts on these specific subjects, and the never-ending news day has finally come to a close. Let me know all your thoughts on anything and everything that I spoke about in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next video.